Okay, we are going to start. I hope everybody has a full plate. Welcome, everybody. I am so pleased to see you here on behalf of both the Community Collaboration Interest Forum and Defending the Early Years. I am Blakely Bundy, and I happen to be both the facilitator of the Community Collaboration Interest Forum and co-director of Defending the Early Years. 2 years ago at the Naeyc conference in Orlando, we thought it would be powerful if we could combine the annual meetings of these two organizations, and which is what we did, and we're doing it again this year. I see it's the Peace folks coming in. Hello. Get a glass of wine and some food. Okay, good. But in these days of inappropriate mandates resulting in push down academics, too much testing, and too little play, early childhood educators are coming together in their educational communities to speak out and hopefully to affect change on behalf of the young children that they teach. So tonight, I think that we have a fascinating program, and I think you will hopefully have a chance to meet other advocates and activists from all over the country and to trade stories and ideas, and hopefully we'll have some ideas to take back to your communities. So first of all, I want to urge everybody please to get a drink or two at the cash bar. We need to spend at least $300. So buying a couple of drinks is like giving a contribution to Defending the Early Years, so please do that.
That's a tax deduction.
Tax deduction, right, okay. Okay, I hope everybody has gotten a couple of plates of food over there, that beautiful fall display. And also over on the table there are lots of Defending the Early Years reports and brochures. And if we run out, they are all available online. Also, there are Defending the Early Years stickers and the bright yellow car magnets, which are awesome because they make your car jump out in the parking lot. You got to find a place on the car that's made of metal, because now parts of cars aren't made of metal, and the magnets, of course, only stick on the metal. But once you find that place, you'll be able to find your car wherever it is. And also, it says learning through play, and a lot of people will see that and will kind of ask, well, what does that mean? Or it will start a conversation. So we hope that you'll all take one or two of those car magnets. And finally, we've got some a clipboard over there. We'd love to get your name and your email. We would love to put you on our mailing list. We send out, Defending the Early Years sends out a e-newsletter about once a month, and that will sort of keep you updated about what we're doing, and you will get to see our latest reports as they come out. So please do sign up. And now I'd like to do a few introductions. First of all, I want to introduce one of the other facilitators for the Community Collaboration Interest Forum, Liza Sullivan over there. We could wave. Liza is the Executive Director of the Alliance for Early Childhood, which is a community collaboration organization based on the North Shore of Chicago. And our other facilitator for the Interest Forum, Joan White, who runs the Collaboration for Early Care and Education in Oak Park, Illinois, couldn't be at the conference this year. And now I would like to tell you about tonight's program and introduce our speakers. And I'm going to introduce them backwards. So I'm going to start with Jim, who's going to be the last speaker. You don't have to do anything backwards. I'm just Jim St. Clair is going to talk about his experiences in kindergarten in both New York and Boston, and how the mandates have changed kindergarten today. Jim is a retired kindergarten teacher, and he's also a member of the National Advisory Board of Defending the Early Years. Dr. Marcy Guddemi over here is also a member of the National Advisory Board Until recently, she was the president and CEO of the Gazelle Institute at Yale University, and now she is a national consultant out of Florida. And she is also a member and officer of both the International and American Association for the Child's Right to Play. So welcome, Marcy. And finally, Dr. Diane Levin. Wave your hand, Diane. Diane is one of the two founders of Defending the Early Years, along with Nancy Carlson Page, founded 5 years ago. And she's also a founder of TRUCE, which stands for Teachers Resisting Unhealthy Children's Entertainment, which is now in its 24th year. She is a professor at Wheelock College in Boston, and she's the author of many books, including So Sexy, So Soon, and Beyond Remote Control Childhood, and numerous articles and chapters, too numerous to count, right? Right, Diane, too numerous.
I can't count them, but other people may be able to count better.
Her most recent report for Defending the Early Years is called Teachers Speak Out, How School Reforms Are Failing Low-Income Young Children, and the two-pager of that is over on the resource table there. Diane is going to start out by talking about the challenges facing education today and how Defending the Early Years is addressing them, and later she will lead a brainstorming session. So I'd like to introduce first Diane Levin, my friend and colleague.
Thank you, Blakely. It's great for that great introduction, and it's really terrific to have all of you here today, tonight. We're really glad that you're joining us and that we can work together. We don't have all the answers, but we always learn more from you, and it helps us then work with you to shape what we can do to help you, to help the children, etc. So I wanted to start by asking you, what brought you here tonight? What are some of the issues that made you want to come for us, that you're hoping to get help with, or that you're upset about, or that you think need to be dealt with? So can you share a little bit of why you're here? Yes.
I get the emails, and it was my turn to give back.
Okay, you get that you're already on our email list, and you knew it was time to give back. Thank you very much.
Testing for 5-year-olds.
Just talk loud.
Testing for 5-year-olds.
Testing for 5-year-olds. That's something you're experiencing and dealing with. Is that something others are here? Yes. Testing for 5-year-olds. Yes.
Trying to change teachers' mentality about focusing so much on academics and forgetting about them.
So it's the teacher's mentality that they've learned academic teachers, and wondering where are they getting their training and how did this come about and how did that come about? Okay, who else? Yes.
I'm here because I'm interested in creating supportive work environments for early childhood educators, especially infants, toddlers, and even preschool. I think there's a huge disconnect between administrators and even state licensing regulations and what exactly needs to happen and the support that early childhood educators need in the classroom.
So thinking about how we can really connect to create environments, supportive environments for teachers and children based on what administrators and systems are requiring for them to do. And as early childhood becomes more and more connected to public school systems as opposed to independent, we thought, well, this will make it more universal, it'll make it available to more children. There's a whole new set of issues that haven't been dealt with that now we need to mobilize around.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I run a school in San Antonio, Texas, and we do, I think, a decent job of empowering and educating our parents for when they leave. So they're moving in a system that's broken, obviously. And so we feel like we're at a place where we're exploring ways to educate more parents in an authentic way so that they can be the voice. Because really, we can do that while they're with us, but they have to be the ripple. And so I want to the information that they need to be that person, that ambassador wherever they go.
So to
We're
help,
seeing that starting to happen, but they don't have enough tools. So they leave our school and they're saying, they only have 15 minutes of recess, I'm meeting with the principal. Or they're mad because my kid can't write and he's in first grade, so I'm sending him my motor labs with the librarian in the library, can you give me some ideas? So they're realizing they're doing it, but they need more.
so the struggles that parents face when they shift from an appropriate early childhood program to some of the horrors that they have to deal with.
And we've given them a good foundation of information and knowledge, so they're stuck. I mean, they need more, it's not what we have,
Right.
but they're very broken. You know, they get out there and it's disruptive.
I just have to tell you, one of the reasons why I think I do this work is when I was 6, my family moved to San Antonio from a little teeny town in New York. And I thought I was in first grade and I decided I was stupid. And so, you know, I've been overcoming that ever since. But I think, I know it's still there because I was asked to give a talk in San Antonio about 10 years ago and I asked them to take me to see it. But the fact is, I just say that because the kinds of experiences we have when we're young and the attitudes we develop about learning, I experienced it firsthand. Well, I've recovered, you know, it's led to wonderful, you know, for me, really developing a wonderful course for my life that I care about deeply. And I wouldn't change it in any way. But the fact is, I don't know if I would have been here if I hadn't lived in San Antonio for 2 years. So I don't think I've ever said that publicly before. So thank you. Yay for saying it right. So there may be positives to the tears. Now, anyone else? Yes, Lucy. Okay, pushing back against the push down. So finding ways to advocate for what we know it should be and what we had established and trying to find ways to maintain it. Yes.
I'm concerned about the new teachers that are coming into the schools now and their training. And then a lot of them are in school districts that have tenure, so they won't speak out because they don't want to lose their jobs. And I'm seeing really, in California, really inappropriate kindergarten to first grades, you know, that even with DEI, I don't even know, you know.
Right, but how voices are squelched, the various forces at work, squelching the voices of even teachers who have been appropriately trained, who don't know, who can't do it. And I know I'm teaching at Wheelock College, which has, you know, kind of been based for over 135 years on trying to develop an appropriate practice. I've heard from many of ours, and I teach the play courses there. I've heard from many students, in recent years, you know, asking for help, thinking through how not to harm their children, given what they're asked to do. You know, they're in different places. You know, they're not all in one community around Boston. But just thinking about that. Yes.
Oh, I was at the Martin Luther King Visiting Center today, and a person came up to me and I didn't know or hadn't met in a long time. And she said that she's very, very, very concerned about the fact that if we look to the future of what people are saying about childcare, it's not going to increase our salaries for childcare keepers or childcare or teachers, or caregivers. And so she was very concerned about how maybe we could do unions, and we've tried that in California. So my question is what's happening? I don't know, because I'm not sure what is happening with regard to
Organizing.
Yeah.
Okay, and John, you wanted to say something.
Yes, this year, in most of the sessions I attended, I heard the presenters talk about academic pushdown. This is something that is very high in consciousness of the early childhood profession. I made my usual appeal to the Board of Governors and the Executive Director of Naeyc this afternoon. There was some applause, but there was some skepticism about how far that would go in the current political climate.
Right, so what's the role of this organization, not DEY, but Naeyc? What voice can we create for that? And DEY is certainly trying to think about that as well, and how we can work with them to encourage them. Last comment, no.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, I think kind of springboarding of what she was saying, I think that I am flabbergasted as I interview teachers for our school and I work in the community that, and it's always been this way, I guess, but that teachers don't have to take at least 4 semesters of child development. They don't take any child development to become teachers, and they don't understand how children work at the core. So I think that we need some action.
One of the requirements, and each state is different and gets to decide.
So I know that, and then my other comment was, I wonder myself in the field, because this is my 26th year, which I know doesn't compare to so many of you, but I feel like these parents are different. I feel like if you have a generation of parents who didn't play themselves, who don't know what it even means, because it's foreign to them. So for them to protect it is crazy, because they didn't have a childhood that was filled with the kind of play that I recognize.
Right. So a couple of things there. One is my organization, Truths for Which Their Materials Over There, was founded 24 years ago when teachers were saying, they had children who were seeing all kinds of media that they come to school and then they were really hard, boys would go around karate chopping when the Ninja Turtle movie came out and hurt each other and cry, and they were having a terrible time dealing with the aggression. It was harder and harder to have quality play, and a group of early childhood educators in Boston started meeting at my dining room, and we started creating materials to help early childhood educators in Boston deal with this stuff. And we've continued to meet, and now we distribute our stuff online nationally, and it's just become a bigger and bigger problem. Well, those children are now the parents.
Exactly.
And what we were talking about then was how children aren't playing, they're imitating, they're not learning how to connect and adapt their behavior to each other. And a lot of my work, for anyone knows about the work of Diane Levin, is about just that issue, about how media and technology really changes development. But what I haven't written about is those children that I started studying are the parents now. So what you're saying is very, very, very important.
26 years ago, I started in the classroom, and that was 24 years
Yes.
ago, and I was right there, a new teacher in the age of
And
mental
deregulation of television happened happened about 33 years ago. So that was when the process began, and so I'm not going to go into all of that, but in terms of, it's not totally unrelated to defending the early years, because I think as kids got less and less interested in school and more interested in karate chops or princesses, schools had to find ways to make them learn the skills that they wanted to teach, and the kinds of teaching we have now, so we'll just make them learn it. I'm oversimplifying, but they're not unrelated. As kids became more media dependent and their worlds became more media dependent, teaching became more rote teaching, just like play became more rote play. And we can talk about that more, and I'm not, but defending the early years was founded, and we'll talk about some of these things more later, because what we were hearing was standards were happening more and more and more with young children. People were asking for help. How do we deal with having to not have any play anymore with our 4-year-olds or our 5-year-olds? How do we start teaching our 4-year-olds to read and have worksheets instead? How do we deal with the 2 hours of required rote teaching time instead of what we know they should be doing? And with the head of my school who sneaks in to make sure I'm doing it and is threatening to fire me. I'm up for tenure this year, and I'm going to be fired because he or she has caught me twice not doing it. And I have a couple kids who end up crying when I try to make them do it, because I know I'm going to be observed and this is what they're going to have to do. And, we started hearing those things, and we ended up, new standards were happening all over the country, and, be a good state, this is what you were supposed to be doing. And early childhood became more and more a part of elementary state school standards, and I'm oversimplifying, and every state was different, but this was the big picture. And we started hearing, more and more of this, and we decided to try to get Nancy Carlson Page and I, who have worked together for many years trying to, promoting play, as some of the key leaders in the field who we knew, like Lillian Katz and Connie King and Stephanie Feeney and Joan Lombardi and Maurice Sykes and Debbie Meyer, to work with us to create a voice to advocate for play and against some of the push downs that were happening. And that is now, that we're now 5 years old, and, we've continued, we've evolved and developed, but we wanted the group, we set up our goals to mobilize the early childhood community to speak out with well-reasoned arguments against inappropriate standards, assessments, and classroom principles. You can find all this online. And we have, some materials over there, but we really wanted to give teachers the materials they needed. They could plagiarize us in any way they wanted, to have that voice to help them argue for those standards. We wanted to try to track some of the effects of the standards, especially linked to the Common Core, and ask people to send us, we distributed questionnaires and asked people to send us information so we could document some of what was happening around the country. And then we tried to prepare materials that promote appropriate practice and give teachers, the materials they needed for appropriate practice. And, just the example of one of my Wheelock students who taught in a Boston suburb, where the children started in public school kindergarten speaking 9 different languages. And the principal would sneak in sneak into her classroom, and she would bring in a little ball to teach the facts, trying to throw the ball to kids to call on them. And the teacher yelled at her and threatened to fire her because she wasn't allowed to have play. I mean, it was those kinds of things that we were hearing. I went to visit her because, and to meet the principal, because we decided if she knew that her college professor thought she was doing so well, maybe it would help the principal be nicer to her. When we started to try to do sabotage things like that, that principal left, and she now is being valued for what the kind of wonderful teacher she is. But she felt she couldn't leave because it would harm the children too much if she couldn't be there to protect them from what was going on. But my point is, DEY was founded to try to really help teachers have materials and have the arguments they needed to help them make things a little better than they otherwise would be. And to feel like they weren't alone and in isolation, that everyone shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel to create the arguments. And so we're now 5 years old. We have the materials that are out there for you. And tonight we have 2 visitors, and Blakely Bundy is one of our 2 code administrators who's here tonight as well. And the other is Geraldine McLaughlin, and they do lots of work as well to help us get these materials out. So we have here tonight 2 speakers who have kind of dealt with these issues a great deal, experienced, highly experienced early childhood educators and leaders. And I'm supposed to have information about you, but I don't know what. But just to say that there's materials on reading in kindergarten, little to gain and much to lose. Lillian Katz wrote something for us about lively minds and the distinction between intellectual goals versus academic goals in school. I wrote the thing about how low-income children were being harmed by the standards, the special challenges they had and how we were making it even worse, and interviewed teachers about working with low-income children. And we have position statements out there to help you with your arguments if you need them, or to share with others who you think do need them. And now we're going to hear 2 other points of view. We're going to hear from, and that sheet has disappeared, I think it's sitting on the table, okay. But we're going to hear from Marcy Guddemi, who for many, many years was at Yale, at the Yale Child Studies and the Gazelle Institute at Yale University, thank you, who, It was all based on child development and developmentally appropriate practice, and they experienced a lot of the push down issues that we're talking about. And then we have Jim St. Clair, who taught for many years in New York, kindergarten, and then, was it always kindergarten? And then in the Cambridge public schools, and dealt with the takeover, the gradual moving in of the standards there as well, and struggled to try to protect children there. So they're each going to talk to you about their work. So we will start with this. Thank you. And thank you all for being here.
So, good evening. I'm glad you all found us over here, and welcome. As Diane mentioned, and Blakely as well, enjoy all the wonderful food and wonderful drink and great discussion and meet new friends and everything. I was asked to speak on the topic of brain development and the new research out there and how that affects the mandates that are being forced down on us in education. And I also was given 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to cut to the chase as quickly as I can and just give you a few highlights that I think are most important. First, let me say, though, that I'm very, very happy to be a member of DEY. I think I might have been one of the first members if we're only 5 years old, because I think that goes back to when I first, heard about you and got excited about what you were doing. And being at Gazelle Institute at that time, we thought DEY and Gazelle Institute and the Alliance for Childhood shared some commonalities on what we believed about children and how they learn and how they develop. So all of that was really exciting. But what I kind of want to start with is this notion that we've known a lot of this for a long time. I mean, I hate to admit that I've been in the profession 40-ish years, and we've known this. I mean, I got my master's in 1980, and we were talking about the push-down curriculum. We were talking about, again, the academation, can I say that correctly, of kindergarten from first grade. It's just not working. But what I am happy to say right now is, fast forward almost 40 years, and we have now even more research to back us up. Again, our position papers with DEY, there's absolutely no research that shows that the academic approach in pre-K and kindergarten works. So why are we doing it? I have this notion that, one 4-year-old read, 2 5-year-olds read. And then some legislator said, well, all 5-year-olds should read then. And of course, that's not child development. I talk frequently about the fact that will some 5-year-olds learn to read? And of course, the answer is yes, but not all 5-year-olds. And the major point that I'm going to make in my short little talk here tonight is we're wasting their time, because there's things that they need to be learning and developing that can only happen through these first 5 years of life. And if we miss that opportunity, then those children are hindered for the rest of their academic lives. So again, I'm so happy that we have the research, but why aren't people listening to it? Why, all of us, why aren't they listening to us? So again, that's the reason we need advocacy organizations like this one, to get that word out there, get legislators. I picked up one of some of those little yellow car stickers. I didn't realize they were magnetic car stickers. And we need to put those on take home a handful of those, pass them out to everyone you know. Get the word out that children learn through play. And again, the research. Send your legislators those links to our papers on DEY. They're excellent. Connie Camille's paper, well, I love the reading paper too, but Connie Camille's paper is so good. You know, why are children, you know, counting by fives when they don't even know what 1 is, what 2 is, 3, 4, 5. You know, they need to really understand 5 and all the implications of 5 before they can move on. And again, I could give a little math thing here, but I'm not going to do that. But math gets even less attention than literacy. And, you know, again, somebody told me at my other presentation, it was with IPA on Wednesday morning, International Play Association, that maybe we were a tiny bit negative. There are some good programs out there. I was talking at my table tonight. There's teachers that are more mature, that are willing to say, I know, I'm a professional. This woman I heard speak earlier today said, you know, I have a master's degree. I know how to teach, and they won't even let me touch the thermostat. You know, what are we doing to our teachers? You know, we need to trust them and empower them because they're the ones that are trained. And I think the training life is getting watered down, and too many elementaries with kindergarten add-on, and they're not getting child development. But again, we know, in fact, I was fortunate enough to write be a co-author with Ed Sigler when I was there on the Yale campus. And the title of our paper was, We Know What to Do. Why aren't we doing it? Well, we all know the answer, money and priorities, but we know what to do. We know how young children learn, and that's what the research shows us. You know, there's power in the research, and we've got to get that message out and get those people to listen to it. Now, why am I so passionate about learning through play? And I've been this way for a long time, and kindergarten has been kind of my mission and passion for a long time. Because again, we've got to do it right. And what we call the new research, which isn't so new anymore when you think about it, but people still say the new research on the brain. But, you know, when neuroscience got involved and we started using these big words, you know, like neuroscience and what's happening with, you know, the hierarchy and the architecture of the brain and what's going on, we got, if you will, proof of what we kind of had gut level feelings for a long time ago. And I use this example just because I love it. I asked my mother how I learned to read. And she said, well, you learned to read by sitting on my lap, and I would read to you over and over again, and before I knew it, you read. And the research shows that that is indeed the way a lot of kids learn how to read. You know, phonics isn't the be-all, end-all of learning how to read. But anyways, back to my point about my mother had a gut-level feeling, as most parents do, that reading to your child is a good thing. But now we have the research to show that, you know, the difference between readers and non-readers, or one study came to this conclusion, the difference between readers and non-readers at the end of first grade was whether or not their parents read to them. You know, there's nothing more important that a parent can do than read to them and interact with them. Not just talk to them, but interact with them. That interaction is just so important. But a revelation to me in the last year or so is the notion of how important an executive functioning is. And I'm not going to, I have down here on my notes to talk to you about what does anybody not know what executive functioning is? Okay, so I'll skip that part, give you another minute here. Anyway, executive functioning is so important. I mean, when children can delay gratification and keep their attention focused on what's going on, when they can inhibit the ability or the desire to, you know, hit their neighbor. They're going to hit their neighbor to be mean. That's just the way kids communicate, you know. But they can inhibit that. You know, they can wait their turn. They can, you know, sit for short periods of time. All that is about executive functioning. And one of the research studies that I came across not so long ago is that when they looked at middle school readers, and they found there was a group of kids that learned how to read, and they could read, they could comprehend, and in fact, the definition of reading is comprehending print to get meaning. So when kids just bark out the words, but they don't get any meaning, they're really not reading. So anyways, that's one group. They can read, they can comprehend. Another group can read, if you will, bark out the words, but they can't comprehend. So they looked at the MRIs of these middle schoolers, and executive functioning was missing. So preparation for reading happens during pre-K, during the first 5 years of life, when that area of the brain is growing. Now here's my revelation that I alluded to a second ago. And I'm going to explain it, so don't be whatever when I say it. But all play is important, but all play is not of equal value. Okay, some of the play that we do in our classrooms, construction play, sand play, block play, many of the different types of play that we do, those are valuable beyond belief. And again, we have plenty of research to show that. But what I have found in my new studies of this area of executive functioning is that the best way to develop executive functioning is through socio-dramatic play or pretend play with others. And what I am seeing and again, I hate to be gloom and doom, and I'm trying not to be negative, but what I'm in kindergarten, I'm seeing very little dramatic play. And in some pre-Ks, I'm seeing less and less. You know, they have these mandates to spend X amount of minutes on language, and literacy lessons, and they're all didactic. They're doing, seat work. In fact, I went to a great session on developmentally appropriate practice K through 3, and I should have brought that. I should have given you some of the research. But the amount of time, and it didn't vary much from kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. The amount of time kids are spending, well, if I can remember correctly, about 43% was teacher instruction, about 28% of the day was individualized work at your desk. That's kindergarten. Like I said, we know better than that. And now we know that executive functioning is the most important thing that has to happen. I said to my Wednesday group, we have to make time for that. We have to take that message back to our schools and our centers and our teachers that is just so important, and there's so many ways to incorporate it into your daily activities, playful activities that involves socio-dramatic play. So I'm probably about out of my 10 minutes, right? Okay, so I'll end up here. But I give a talk sometimes, and I title it Executive Functioning. Well, I have several words, but the gist of the title is Executive Functioning Leads to Academic Success. Because again, the child that can't sit still, and the child that can't focus, and the child that can't comprehend, they're not going to be successful. And again, early childhood, that foundation is just so important. So I'll just end by saying that, part of the reason that I love DEY is that we are this advocacy group. And I hope all of you will, if you aren't already members, will join us and tell other people about DEY, because, Diane and I and a few of us, we're not going to be around a whole lot longer. We need the next generation. We are training this next generation to take over and take this fight on. So with that, I'll end and pass it to James.
Thank you. It's great to be here. My name is Jim St. Clair. I taught kindergarten for 39 years. In
in New York City, in Roxbury, in Boston, and the last 28 years in Cambridge in a public school kindergarten, all these years in kindergarten, which was a two-way language immersion school, Spanish, English. 2 disclaimers. I was expelled from kindergarten.
No.
I don't have any memory of it, but my mother says they sent me home and said I was too active to come back in 1st grade. The other thing is that I was very fortunate that the program I was educated in college and the school I interned in Manhattan and the programs I've worked in, I've never really had to fully compromise my core values. And I'm very grateful to that. I retired in 2013, and since then I've spent a lot of time in kindergartens because I'm very concerned about what's going on. Kindergarten is certainly the danger zone. I mean, some people feel like the battle is lost, but because mostly they're situated in public elementary schools, the push down it's right there. It's so easy to just get pushed right down. It's very susceptible to it. A lot of what I've seen is very troubling. These statistics blow my mind. Consider that the kids that are born this year, they're going to enter the workforce in the year 2040. And the kids who are in kindergarten this year are going to retire, if that's still a thing, in the year 2073. Now, we don't have a really clear image of what work and play, for that matter, is going to look like in 2040 or 2073. But I'm pretty sure since we carry most of the world's information around on our phones, it's not going to be that important that you know the capital of Colorado, or the numbers of the uniform numbers of a baseball team. What's likely to be more important are skills like learning to work together, to make hypotheses, to share ideas, to observe phenomenon, to record what you see, and to share those with other people, with other kids, And that's exactly the kind of things that used to be in kindergarten classrooms. And they're exactly the kind of things that should be in kindergarten classrooms. The problem is that as we're approaching that future, those things aren't so visible in kindergarten classrooms. What I've seen is too many kindergarten classrooms are driven, the curriculum and the schedule is driven by things we must know or concepts we must have. And so I'll give you an example from last week. I was in a classroom that part of the day was the letter of the day. Now, if you know 4 or 5-year-olds, try and teach the letter B to 24 and 5-year-olds at the same time. Group A says, yeah, B, I know B, but, that's uppercase, that's lowercase, Brian's name, but. And right away you lost them and they're misbehaving. You have a second group that's, that's interesting. D, the lowercase b looks a lot like the D. Belinda's name starts with B. You got them. And a third group who doesn't know a number from a letter, who could care less and would rather be doing something else. 2/3 of your kids are already misbehaving because you're trying to teach them the letter B at the same time. And yet, in spite of this, that's what the data fanatics, nervous reading teachers, and a lot of administrators, my favorite group, the people who want the business model of schools, tell us we need to go in that direction. What's most discouraging to me is that many of the teachers in these classrooms know this isn't right. There's teachers I've worked with for years who know that this isn't the right thing to be doing with kids, and frankly, they're being bullied. They're being bullied into doing things that they feel are wrong for kids. There was a very well-known kindergarten teacher in my system in Cambridge, Susie Slater. She was on the responsive classroom training tapes, and she didn't retire. She resigned. And the Huffington Post and morning TV shows, she went viral. And she resigned because she felt like in the great city of Cambridge, the People's Republic of Cambridge, that she was doing harms to 5 and 6-year-olds in kindergarten. That's scary. The first order of business that I tell teachers is that while if you've been working with young children for a long time, the chances are you know more about how they learn than the people who are coming in and telling you what you should be doing. Like the teacher who told me that, what do I do? She's teaching 4 and 5-year-olds. They want me to put up the objective of the lesson. What do I put up in the playhouse? It's a restaurant. We agreed, she and I, that she should put up nothing. If the people coming in to observe don't know how the kids that age learn, then they should go back to school. It's not her job to teach. They know more than the folks who think that kindergarten should look more like first grade. And in fact, I think that first grade, second grade for that matter, should look more like kindergarten. Never mind taking the blocks out of kindergarten. We need to load up on research to make these arguments. A good place to start is high school. You know, they've got some stuff that you can go to and you can make these arguments. If it's not going to be driven by the letter of the day or the concept of the week, what should it be driven by? It should be driven by children's interest, their curiosity, and the questions. That should drive the curriculum. And within that context, and the context is play. If they're following their interest, they're following their curiosity, they're following the questions they have, they're playing around it, they will discover concepts. They're almost tripping over them, and they will develop skills which become tools that they use actively while they're learning. And while they're engaged this way, you know, we can accommodate a lot of different interests. We can accommodate all kinds of modes of learning. I still believe in Howard Gardner's 7 intelligences. I may be old-fashioned, but I still believe in that. And we can teach kids at very different cognitive levels. So, you know, you can have one thing going on here, one thing going on there, while kids are playing. Let me give you a quick sketch of what it looked like. You know, this was my classroom, but my classroom wasn't special. Well, a lot of classrooms used to look like this. First of all, you need space. And we had a very wise principal in Cambridge who insisted that the kindergarten classroom should follow the same standard as daycare centers in terms of the square footage per kid. They don't. But so you might have, you know, a room with a block area, a big collage table, a dramatic play area, a writing and drawing table, a paint easel, a science center, a little library, a listening center. I always like to have a peace center where they go to resolve problems. And parents, by the way, when school is functioning like this, parents become your biggest advocates. Parents love it. Why? A, the kids come home and they're happy. They love to go to school. B, Cambridge has a lot of high-powered parents. If you're trying to teach everyone the number 5 on the first day, you're going to have 10 parents that go, my kid's bored, my kid knows 5. But while you're playing, you can, you know, while one kid is learning the concept of 5, another kid can actually visually see with certain grids and things, they can see groupings that is the basis of multiplication. You don't call it that, but they can see that, and the parents can see what their kids are being exposed to. They're very happy. You know, the head of my local union, he said to me once when I was complaining, he said, well, you know, we're putting play back in. We don't play all day like you did, Jim. We didn't play all day. In fact, there was a lot of mandates that I was exposed to. We published books. We had a writing time. We taught kids math games. We read a lot of read-alouds. The thing is, if kids knew that the center of the day, their choice time was precious, and it was like from soup to nuts, it was like 2 hours, you know. We explained things, they made choices, they worked together. We took time to record our work before cleanup, and then we shared it. If they knew they were going to get that every day, they were a lot more willing to put in the effort at things that are a little bit more difficult. We didn't overdo it, but we knew we had to do that. And I still claim that, you know, I used to say all the time, we can advance kids' literacy and their numeracy, whether we're studying, you know, ducks, houses, or ziggurats. It doesn't matter. You can follow kids' interest, and you can find ways to advance their literacy and advance their numeracy and keep them very happy. I just want to give you a couple of quick examples. Just recently, I'm up, no more time?
1 more minute.
What?
1 more minute.
Okay. Classroom A I was in. Kids are building with blocks. They build a long thing. I asked them what it is. It's the red line, the subway line in Boston. I say, where does it go? It goes to Our Life. I make a little sign. Kids start making signs. They're tracing. Then some kid wants to make Park Street and sound it out. You get the idea. They do literacy. Next day, I'm in a classroom that's the more academic, the kindergartners. They're tracing the letter X. And immediately, kids are poking each other under the table and banging their drums. They're having behavior problems. The second example, which is really important to me, is a little girl I had years ago who was the only kindergarten ever that I remember who sat down at the easel and had her friends pose for portraits. And she sang like a bird, and I knew the family, and she was very behind in the literacy stuff, but we used song charts a lot, and she was beginning to point, and she was willing to put in work on other things. And I was asked by the family to translate when she had a placement meeting when she was in 3rd grade, and I heard a teacher say after they read the test results, this little girl can't do anything. And I don't blame the teacher. That teacher was bullied because everything was reduced to literacy and numeracy, you know? And it made me think, how many builders, painters, dancers, architects did we crush in the process of going from that kind of kindergarten to what we have today? You know, and plus we're missing out on real preparation for a world of the future that we can only guess at. That's why we're defending the early years. It's really the reason. Anyway, thanks.
You're on again. Monty.
Okay. Thanks to both of you. That really, I mean, in both cases, really captured what we need to be here thinking about, bringing to children, bringing to the world. Thank you both so much. And what we'd like to do now, unless anyone wants to object, is go at your tables. And I think the 4 of us are going to go around to facilitate at the 4 tables. The 2 of you may not know that, but you are. No, he's running away. I didn't mean to make you run away. Okay, but then you'll facilitate. I don't know. That's not allowed. So what we'd like to do is break into groups and really think about what kinds of priorities do you see DEY should be working on? What are some of the issues you brought? What are some of the things you'd like to see us? You've heard a little bit about what we've been doing. What are some of the things you feel like? Let's think through some of the priorities that we should begin to address next. Okay? So I think hopefully, you know, Marcy will be at the table, Blakely and I will be at a table, and soon Jim will be at a table, and we can all talk about, and the couple of you here, friend, you know, go to a table. Okay?
Great.
Thank you. Come on. Okay, we have to come back together. We're behind schedule. You all had so much to talk about in your groups that we're behind schedule, but what I'm going to do is ask each group to share the 2 things that they think were most important in what they talked about, and if there's anyone there who could write down those 2 things and anything more to hand in, we'll kind of make a longer list that we'll put online and get out. Hello? Hello? If I start singing a song, will that work better? You don't want me to.
I'm singing Tom Rose.
Okay, thank you. So we're we're behind schedule, and I want to hear what you had to say. Excuse me. Excuse me. So let's hear. Can we start at this group here? Can you tell us the two things that really stand out for you in terms of what came up? Who are you pointing at? Marcy?
Well, we said, and we all talked about it at length on different ways, but we need to be more visible. DEY needs to be more visible. And whether that's another march on Washington, some public service announcements, or just commercials. But and one last point I was going to make before we broke up is that it's not us saying it. Again, it's the research that's saying it.
So I guess I think it's in part research, but in part things have to be said in ways that resonate with the public listening. So that when you just say the research, when we say it just as research, people say, okay, yeah, the research, but you need to say it in a way that makes them say, yes, that's what I want for my kids. Or, you need to say it in a way that makes it accessible to the public audience, so they want it, so it's a delicate balance.
And that was the last one.
Yeah.
Parents need to know this and want this.
Parents need to want, okay. Are you taking notes, Blakely? Thank
I have
you.
a section that is geared towards parents, which I know DEY is geared towards educators, and that's a beautiful thing, so I don't know how that aligns with the goals of the organization. But to have a component there that is.
So have materials that teachers can give to parents.
If I do give them to the parents, actually, in my school,
Okay.
but they're kind of heavy and they're.
That's a very interesting idea to think about how we can then translate our
Not only
stuff
that, I
to
want to
parents.
buy them, like I give all of our parents when they tour a copy of the article about intellectual versus academic learning and tell them it aligns really well with our philosophy. This is a great organization, you should join it. Please read this before you register because if this is not what you're looking for, we're not a good fit kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
But I would like it to be a nice publication, so I'd like to buy it from DUI, print it nice and slick and pretty because we're small potatoes, you know, like to make those.
Well, I would like to suggest, I mean, you know, we're not a big copyright organization. If you design it the way you want, send it to us and say, how do you feel about our doing this? And you can, we'll share it with you too, DUI.
I just want you to sell it to me in a pack of 50.
Oh, you mean you want a whole bunch of copies?
Yeah, I want to be able to buy like.
I thought you wanted to revise it in a new form.
Oh, no, I take it just like you said it because you got it. I
Okay.
just need to share it.
Well, you need to email us and ask.
I actually called and asked, and they said, you can print it yourself.
Who did you call? We don't have a phone number.
I emailed, I called somebody, I had to look it up, it was
Okay.
after the one in Florida. I went to the one in Florida
Okay.
and I picked up the slip copy and I was like, I need more
Okay.
slip copies.
So be in touch with us again and we'll see what we can do. But then when people do things like that, it's really helpful if you share with us what happened, because in our newsletter, we then provide it as a model for others. So if you're on our email list to get our monthly newsletter, those are the kinds of things we put in it, so share with us. Okay, the next group?
We had similar thoughts as the first table, but I would just like to add two things that we discussed. The idea of partnering with corporations who understand the value of early talents to they line their future workforce.
So like what kind of corporation are you thinking of?
Yes. In Massachusetts, National Grid was a big part of,
A couple of years ago in Boston, actually in Boston, 5 years ago, there was a symposium with, I think, National Grid and a couple of other big corporations in Boston. And they spoke on a panel and talked about the importance of early childhood education to, so that they would have future employees, right? And so the importance of STEM and all that kind of stuff.
So this is the Boston Public Schools work with them, didn't they? No?
well, they did, but it was also child and brain building.
Okay.
Yeah. And a children's museum.
Oh, yes, okay.
In California, yes, similar to that.
So thinking about how to connect that way. Okay, so that's,
Partnership through early childhood professionals in elected positions.
so I think in some way, a broader way to say it is helping to show the connection between play-based, problem-solving, and, you know, engagement learning in young children and how that contributes to better workers when they're ready to enter the workforce. How the kind of education we think is appropriate prepares better workers for the workforce. And we're not just talking about in Silicon Valley, but we're talking about for all, you know, for the mainstream kinds of jobs. That's what you're saying?
Early educators that are going to be groomed for their elected officials.
So help early childhood educators become elected officials. But helping them become real activists and politically engaged and politically contributing. Okay. Thank you. This group.
Yes, I don't want to piggyback off of these. We talked about the danger zone is kindergarten. The danger zone is early childhood environments. Because brain research shows us from birth to 5 is when the brain is firing these neurons. So that being said, early childhood educators are afraid to speak out because they're mostly women. They make less than poverty level wages. Their jobs scared. So there isn't really a platform for them to speak out. And I think the other commonality that we found that we also saw up here at the table, kind of piggyback off of this, was the second generation. That they don't understand what play really is. So it's hard for us to communicate to them what the kids really need And one of the phrases that we used here at the table was digital dementia. And that's not my phrase. The digital dementia that's being created is very, very dangerous. So, yeah, that was some of the big ideas that we got out of our discussion.
Thank you. This group here.
It's all political. We talked a lot about the research and getting it out there. And somebody had the idea of, next year's in Washington. Get DUI, get Naeyc, get the Peace, get everyone together to write a position paper and have people during the conference do active lobbying to Congress. Because they don't live there. That's where they work. They work there.
Okay, that's very interesting, and to start, so even like DEY could send out a message, who's going to be there, who's near Washington, how can we work together during the conference, or even getting there the day before to do various kinds of lobbying, and let's organize for it. That might, coming up with a way to work together on it. Does some of you here going to be there next year? Raise your hands if you think you're going to be there. Okay, you're hired. Yes. So I can't hear you.
It's at the time of the 2018 election.
Oh, right.
This is the vote. If we do it at that time, we can do something else looking to 2020, but that is too late at that moment. I think I would support that there be a mobilization to have early childhood education day across the country.
So DUI is not going to, it's going to be hard for DUI to do that.
I didn't say.
Yeah. But there's different.
Collaboration with Naeyc and others, pick a day and have.
Okay.
When you go to your state house, contact your congressman,
That
your senator on the same day in March or April. No,
well, I think it's two different things, but another is when we are in DC, are there ways we can have a voice visible around some of the issues defending the early years and speaking about it?
In the middle of it, that could be very simple.
Yes, and it seems like there's two different very important pieces.
But the political reality is we need this out there. Well,
I hear you.
We need to do it.
Yes, Lucy, thank you.
Not all scattered.
Right. Okay, thank you, John.
But it is basically a cultural phenomenon. You've got a lot of people just mechanically looking at the test scores and the school assessments and the teacher assessments and all those numbers. And you've got to get parents and the public and the decision makers like the superintendents and school boards at the state and local levels really getting into the idea that children, young children especially, learn a different way, much better than they do the other way. And you have.
So what I hear, we need to stop. It's 8 o'clock and we need to get out of here. So I hear what you're saying, that we need to think about ways to educate the public and the policymakers around the limitations of teaching to the test for young children.
Yeah, and social media,
yes.
Twitter.
Right. Okay, thank you. One other quick list.
This is a suggestion for the action of linking with Naeyc in time for the election to make an impact. The Public Policy Forum is March 4th through 6th. Naeyc develops policy statements and develops a platform and messaging that goes to all of the people who attend that forum. DEY could ask and work with some of the other interest groups.
We work with Heather, their policy person. We're already working with her. We've already met with her, and with other leaders in Naeyc. So that process has begun. I can't promise where it's going to get us, but we have begun the process, and they are interested in talking with and discussing the issues with us. And is there anything else anyone wants to say before we break up? Does anyone want to take some food with them? Because there's all that food over there.
I'm talking to parents, kind of what I tell my parents all the time is they have to have a long vision. Parents right now are so caught up in the short vision. Can they regurgitate it tomorrow? So I think if we can empower parents to have a long vision for their children, that terminology might reframe.
So
their
one of the
concern.
things I heard people say is it'd be good if truths develop materials that might be able to help with that, but might even be able to say, if your child works on this now, that can lead to this when they're 8, that can lead to this when they're 12.
But you have to have a long vision. The
Right.
outcomes are in middle school from working with blocks
Right.
in year 4. The outcomes are long
Right.
vision.
Then we need to prepare little materials that here's why blocks are important when you're 4.
So maybe like a tagline that's like, empowering parents to have a long vision, because it's really,
Right.
it's a marathon. And that parents need to see that, because they're so caught up in like, well, now they can regurgitate that so they know it, but they don't know it.
Yes.
I could tell them, you're not preparing kids for first grade, you're preparing kids for.
For life.
Got it. That's very good.
Yeah.
Don't prepare kids for the next grade level by doing what they do in the next grade.
I know, I agree.
Oh, write that down, Levin. Did you hear that? You don't prepare children for the next grade level by teaching them a year earlier what they do in the next grade
Well,
level.
I give them an analogy for parents. I'm like, you can't be in a dysfunctional marriage and say, we still think you should be a great spouse. You can't put kids in a dysfunctional environment and say you should thrive.
Right.
We can't say, well, you're gonna have sex someday, so you should start when you're 8.
Write that down, Levin.
On a really bad day, or a really good day, depending on how you think about it. Like,
Okay.
you can't do that. We gotta stop.
So this has been great. Has everyone signed the form so we know that it's here? Thank you, thank you, thank you.